One kick at the door sent him tumbling to the earthen floor. He groaned in pain, calling out for Nyaloka to help him up. The room was dark, the floor filthy, a mix of Nyaloka's broken water, mud from Sister Joan and the driver's shoes, and rainwater. He groped around, trying to find something to hold on to, but in vain. And part 2 continues. The following morning, Oracha sobered up enough to realize that Nyaloka's absence was not something to be taken lightly. He thought for a while before deciding to report the matter to the village elder, or better yet, the chief. He pulled out the box containing his clothes, emptied it onto the floor, and hastily chose his green trousers and blue t-shirt. Without even closing the door behind him, he began his journey. The village elder was already out on his errands, so Oracha proceeded directly to the chief's camp. He knocked and entered, and the chief welcomed him to sit.
"Who are you?"
asked the chief. After Oracha introduced himself, the chief recognized where he was from. Oracha shared his story, which was indeed heartbreaking. Moved by the account, the chief accompanied Oracha back to his home. As the saying goes, seeing is believing. Nyaloka was still absent. The chief decided to call a meeting as soon as possible. People gathered for the meeting, and the information was relayed, but no one could testify to having seen her. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Oracha began to wail. He couldn't imagine life without his dear wife. It's often said that the value of something is felt only when it's lost, and this became painfully clear to Oracha. Comforted by the community, everyone promised to spread the word far and wide to help find Nyaloka. The meeting was adjourned, and Peter, Oracha's friend, escorted him home. Peter suggested they stop by Paulina's joint, but Oracha's taste for alcohol had long vanished.
"How could you even suggest stopping by Paulina's pub when my wife is missing?"
Oracha exclaimed.
"I thought it might help you cope with the stress,"
Peter replied. The following morning, Oracha let out his calves and chicken before sitting on his veranda, observing them as they fed. He held his chin in despair, his mind racing with thoughts.
Could she have been eaten by a hyena or kidnapped by unknown people?
He wondered. He dismissed the hyena theory and reluctantly settled on the latter. As noon approached, Oracha saw Paulina and Peter approaching his homestead. When Paulina extended her hand to greet him, Oracha sneered and turned away. They exchanged uncertain glances as Peter tried to calm Oracha. Oracha stormed into his house and quickly emerged with a short, thick stick, nearly striking Paulina had Peter not intervened in time. "What have I done to deserve this, Oracha?" Paulina cried, hiding behind Peter as he wrestled the stick from Oracha.
"You don't know? You don't realize that you are the reason my wife and unborn child are missing? If I hadn't gone to your pub, none of this would have happened.
I'm sorry for what happened. Take heart. All will be well.
Take heart? After losing everything I had?
Oracha shouted before running behind his house. Paulina and Peter locked themselves inside, unable to predict his next move. When Oracha arrived at Paulina's pub, it was deserted. He broke all the pots, including the one containing the busa, before fleeing back home. Paulina and Peter were still inside the house when he returned. Oracha quietly sat on the veranda, waiting for them to open the door. Oracha, Paulina called.
What? You've taken away my wife, and now you are taking my house? What did I ever do to you?
No one is taking your house, Oracha. We were just scared when we saw you running behind the house.
Peter explained.
I can stay outside, but my calf and chickens can't. Please let them in.
Peter cautiously peered outside to see if Oracha was carrying anything dangerous, but found him only holding his chin in despair. They quickly stepped outside, allowing the chicken and the calf to enter. Just as they were about to leave, a white car appeared at the gate and made its way towards Oracha's house. Oracha stood and joined them as they all watched the car with anticipation. The car stopped in front of the house, and without hesitation, Sister Miriam stepped out, leaving Nyaloka and her driver inside. Oracha's heart raced with fear, uncertain of the news she had come to deliver about his wife. Sister Miriam greeted them briefly before returning to the car. She gently cradled a baby in her arms as Nyaloka stepped out with a bag containing the baby's clothes. Tears streamed down Nyaloka's face as she looked at Oracha, who stared back in shock. She entered the house without a word or handshake. Sister Miriam followed with the baby, and Oracha, Paulina, and Peter followed suit. Sister Miriam led them in prayer, after which they all sat down, leaving Oracha kneeling as he begged his wife for forgiveness for what had happened in his absence. Paulina and Peter joined him, and the three knelt, asking for forgiveness. Sister Miriam pleaded with Nyaloka, who slowly found it in her heart to forgive them. Paulina prepared a meal, and after eating, everyone dispersed, leaving Oracha, Nyaloka, and the baby behind. The following morning, Oracha headed to the chief's camp to share the good news. To his surprise, Paulina was already there, reporting her broken pots. Oracha felt a twinge of guilt, but tried to maintain his composure.
All I can say is that both of the reports you're giving me are good news,
said the chief. Good news? After I lost everything? Paulina asked.
Yes, it's good news because I've fought against Busa brewing in this village for years, but to no avail. If I knew who broke your pot, I'd reward them 1,000,000 times over.
Paulina stared at Oracha, then walked away.
Oracha, there's something special about your newborn. He's brought many blessings that shouldn't go uncelebrated,
the chief said. Oracha looked at him, puzzled by his words.
I can see you're wondering what I'm talking about, but that's the point. On that note, I'll organize a celebration on your behalf to honor the breakthrough that has come with this birth.
The chief added.
Thank you.
Oracha replied as he left. He shared the news with his wife, who welcomed it. People from all walks of life gathered to celebrate Oracha Jr.'s birth. The celebration was held at Oracha's home, and Nyaloka couldn't understand why so many people, including strangers, were there. Food and drinks were plentiful, and people feasted and drank to their heart's content. Finally, the chief gave his speech.
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to thank God for the breakthrough that has come with the birth of our newborn, Oracha Jr. First, his conception was a breakthrough that transformed Nyaloka from a Busa brewer to a staunch believer. Second, during the fiercest drought we've ever experienced, his birth coincided with a heavy downpour that continues to nourish the earth, giving us hope for a better tomorrow. Third, and perhaps many of you are unaware of this, the largest Busa club in our village was mysteriously vandalized, with all the pots and the Busa poured out, effectively ending the business. This has been a burden to me for years, and I can't believe it's happened so quickly with the birth of this child.
People whispered, speculating about what had happened at Paulina's Busa Club.
Finally,
continued the chief,
I pray that God protects Oracha Jr. throughout his life. I believe he's destined for greatness and will help us overcome the challenges we face as a village. Thank you, and may God bless you, and let the celebration continue,
said the chief. Paulina was conspicuously absent during the celebration. She had relocated to a distant village, unable to bear the humiliation of the situation. Oracha, his friend Peter, and others eventually joined Nyaloka and became followers at New Hope Church. And that's the end of the story.